Hello, and welcome to another day of English 2. I'm your online teacher, Miss Bear. As a reminder, we are working on a literary analysis unit, and this is a part of, or a second part of our larger coming of age common lit unit. And so we are on day 3. We are continuing our American history unit. So our essential question is, what experiences lead us from childhood into adulthood? And at the end of our unit, we're going to write an essay in which you explain your perspective on what it means to come of age and how we become an adult. You're going to use evidence from multiple texts as well as your own experiences to support your argument. So yesterday we began American history, and that is by Judith Ortiz Cofer. And in that short story, you heard a little bit about Building L. You also heard a little bit about President Kennedy. And then today we're going to continue that story. And so you should have your handout that looks like what's on your screen. And I'm going to read out loud beginning in paragraph 22. And then there's a part I believe you might read yourself. Nope, I'm going to read the rest of it to you. And that's quite okay. And then we'll have some independent practice or some independent work that you will do at the end of today. So follow along with me as I read our story. In the next 30 minutes, I changed clothes, put on a little pink lipstick, and got my books together. Then I went in to tell my mother that I was going to a friend's house to study. I did not expect her reaction. "You're going out today?" The way she said today sounded as if a storm warning had been issued. It was said in utter disbelief. Before I could answer, she came toward me and held my elbows as I clutched my books. "Iha, the president has been killed. We must show respect. He was a great man. Come to church with me tonight." She tried to embrace me, but my books were in the way. My first impulse was to comfort her. She seemed so distraught. But I had to meet Eugene in 15 minutes. "I have a test to study for, Mama. I will be home by 8. "You are forgetting who you are, Nina. I have seen you staring down at that boy's house. You are heading for humiliation and pain." My mother said this in Spanish and in a resigned tone that surprised me, as if she had no intention of stopping me from heading for humiliation and pain. I started for the door. She sat in front of the TV holding a white handkerchief to her face. I'm going to stop here because I want you to turn and talk with your neighbor and answer that question. What does Elena's mother mean by giving Elena this warning? And that's that warning in paragraph 27 that says that you're heading for humiliation and pain. So turn and talk with your neighbor about that for just a second and write down your ideas in the margins of the text. All right, let's continue reading. Paragraph 28 is where we stopped. I walked out to the street and around the chain link fence that separated L building from Eugene's house. The yard was neatly edged around the little walk that had led to the door. It always amazed me how Patterson, the inner core of the city, had no apparent logic to its architecture. Small, neat, single residences like this one could be found right next to huge, dilapidated apartment buildings like L building. My guess was that the little houses had been there first, then the immigrants had come in droves, and the monstrosities had been raised for them, the Italians, the Irish, the Jews, and now us, the Puerto Ricans, and the blacks. The door was painted a deep green, verde, the color of hope. I had heard my mother say it, "Verde Esperanza." I knocked softly. A few suspenseful moments later, the door opened just a crack. The red, swollen face of a woman appeared. She had a halo of red hair floating over a delicate ivory face, the face of a doll with freckles on the nose. Her smudged eye makeup made her look unreal to me, like a mannequin seen through the warped store window. All right, now I want you to find some evidence in that paragraph 28. Highlight 3 details that show the contrast between the L building and Eugene's home. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that, and then we'll finish reading. Okay, so we're going to continue reading at paragraph 29. What do you want? Her voice was tiny and sweet sounding, like a little girl's, but her tone was not friendly. I'm Eugene's friend. He asked me over to study. I thrust out my books, a silly gesture that embarrassed me almost immediately. You live there? She pointed up to the L building, which looked particularly ugly, like a gray prison with its many dirty windows and rusty fire escapes. The woman had stepped halfway out, and I could see that she wore a white nurse's uniform with St. Joseph's Hospital on the name tag. Yes, I do. She looked intently at me for a couple of heartbeats, then said, as if to herself, I don't know how you people do it. Then directly at me. Listen, honey, Eugene doesn't want to study with you. He's a smart boy, doesn't need help. You understand me? I am truly sorry if he told you you could come over. He cannot study with you. It's nothing personal. You understand? We won't be in this place much longer. No need for him to get close to people. It'll just make it harder for him later. Run back home now. I couldn't move. I just stood there in shock at hearing these things said to me in such a honey-drenched voice. I had never heard an accent like hers, except for Eugene's softer version. It was as if she were singing me a little song. What's wrong? Didn't you hear what I said? She seemed very angry, and I finally snapped out of my trance. I turned away from the green door, and I heard her close it gently. So in paragraphs 29 through 35, I want you to think and share with your partner. Write down your thoughts before you share, though. When Eugene's mother asked Elena, you live there? While pointing at the L building, what does this suggest about how Eugene's mother views Elena? So write down your thoughts in the margin and then turn and talk with your partner. All right, let's continue reading. In paragraphs 35 through 37, you're going to write. And so let's pay special attention to how Elena's parents are no longer discussing their dreams for the future. So let's go back, and we're going to start reading in paragraph 36 is where we cut off. So follow along with me. Our apartment was empty when I got home. My mother was in someone else's kitchen, seeking the solace she needed. My father would come in from his late shift at midnight. I would hear them talking softly in the kitchen for hours that night. They would not discuss their dreams for the future or life in Puerto Rico, as they often did. That night, they would talk sadly about the young widow and her 2 children, as if they were family. For the next few days, we would observe luto in our apartment. That is, we would practice restraint and silence. No loud music or laughter. Some of the women of L building would wear black for weeks. That night, as I lay in my bed trying to feel the right thing for our dead president, but the tears that came up from a deep source inside me were strictly for me. When my mother came to the door, I pretended to be sleeping. Sometime during the night, I saw from my bed the street light had come on. It had a pink halo around it. I went to my window and pressed my face to the cool glass. Looking up at the light, I could see the white snow falling like a lace veil over its face. I did not look down to see it turning gray as it touched the ground below. All right, now I'm going to give you a minute to write your answer to this question. In the aftermath of the president's death, Elena's parents are no longer discussing their dreams for the future. So I want you to think about, what has Elena realized about her own dreams? So write your answer down in the margin, and then we'll come back together and I'll tell you what to do next. All right, so we got to the end of that section, or this text. And so at the end of every passage that we read on Common Lit, you know that there are some text-dependent questions at the end. These text-dependent questions are meant to be independent practice for you, and you are to answer them, and it helps you build your knowledge for that MAP assessment. Now, while these questions are are geared towards or look very similar to our map questions. They are designed to help prepare you for that map assessment. And that is all that we're going to do for today. And until we come back next time, we're going to read marigolds. No, we have another lesson before we go into marigolds, but we'll come back next time. So until then, happy reading.